Welcome back to Algebra 1, Chapter 9, Section 4 in this book. We've been talking about quadratic equations, and the first way we solve them is if they only had an x squared and not a plain x, we could solve it by square root, by saying y is x not alone and taking the square root. But now we have some that have this x squared but also just have an x. And so we're going to learn a lot of different ways to solve it. There are certain ways I want you to be really good at, especially with your calculator. So you really have to watch the other videos where I zoom in on the calculator, the ones that are called the calculator labs, and they go with the calculator activities in your book. So don't skip those, they're super important, all right? So do you remember when we talked about linear equations? That was where you had two lines graphed on the same piece of graph paper, and the solution was wherever they intersected. That was the answer. Now we are graphing parabolas, that's the shape if there's a x squared in it. And what is considered the solution? Well, it turns out the solutions is wherever the u touches the x-axis. So we have done y equals x squared, and it looked like that, and it touched right there at 0, 0. So 0, 0, or x equals 0, is considered the solution to that equation because that's where that shape touches that x-axis. What they often are is instead of touching in one place, they will often touch in two places. You can have an equation like this, and do you see how it touches in two places? So the solution to this one might be x equals -2 and x equals 2, because it's touching in two places. Now, you could graph it and it'd be over here where it's not touching anywhere, and that's called no solution. Because it doesn't touch anywhere, that one's no solution. Okay, so we can graph these equations and look and see where it crosses the line, and that's the answer. We can use our calculator and graph them, and it will tell us the answer also. And so we're going to learn a lot of different ways to use our calculator and to use graphs to solve these. Now, let's just solve this equation and see what x squared equals algebraically. Why is x not alone? Well, it's being multiplied by 1/2, which is the same thing as divided by 2, and it's squared. What's the opposite of dividing by 2? Multiplying by 2. What we do to one side, we do to the other. X squared equals 16. Why is x not alone? It is squared. So we square root both sides. So x equals plus or minus 4. That means it would cross at -4 and +4, and that's what it would look like on our calculator. We can check it with our calculator by getting all the numbers and letters and everything on one side. So I can move this 8 to the other side by doing -8, and that would be then equal to 0. And remember, 0, y, and f of x are all weirdly the same thing. So this is equal to y. So I can put this in my calculator. I can go to the y equals button and type in 1/2 x squared, or it's the same thing as the x squared being in the numerator. I could do 1/2 divided by 2 minus 8, and I could graph it, and I could look and see if it really does cross at -4 and +4. But that's not all that good. It's better to use your calculator for it to tell you exactly if it's true or not. You can do that by going to your calculator and going to second trace and pick zeros. Another name for solutions or zeros, because y is 0 when where this u is crossing the x-axis. So you're not going up or down any. So those are also called zeros or solution. Your calculator calls them zeros. And I'll show you in the calculator video how to put in the equation and then do second trace, pick zeros, and I'll show you how to make your calculator tell you the answer. Another way your calculator can tell you the answer is by putting in programs that are quadratic equation programs. You can get them from the TI-84 website. I think you have to register as a homeschooler and your parent is a teacher so that you can download the programs onto your calculator. If you live near me, I've got cables, I'll give them to you. If you've taken classes from me before, the ones I like are A quad, discrimi, and B quad, and I can give you all of those, and it will also tell you the solutions or the answers of where these U's cross the x-axis, which is considered the answer. Here is a problem that we're going to graph here. So we want to get all the letters and numbers on one side, so we're going to subtract 2 from both sides, and then that equals 0 or y. So this is our equation. And we can graph it on our graphing calculator. You go to y equals, put in x squared minus x minus 2, and you can look at it, and the u appears to cross at -1 and +2. It's a u that looks like that. You can real carefully look at the little hash marks and see what the answers are, is one way to do it. Or you can use this where you do the zeros, A quad, discrimi, or B quad. Here is another one. If you put that in your calculator and look real carefully, then x should be equal to 2 or -6. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to try these and see if you can get -1 and 2 with this one. See if you can see why it's 2 and -6 with that one. See if you can understand that this one is ±4. I want you to practice on your calculator, see if you can look at it, and then I want you to watch the other video where I show you how to do trace zeros, second trace 0 to get the answers. Also, if these aren't coming up, you're trying to graph it and it's not there, mess with your window. How you do that is you go to Zoom Standard, and it should give you a good window for all of these. So put in your equation and then hit Zoom, the button that says Zoom, which there used to be a song in the 70s of this PBS show that goes zoom a zoom a zoom zoom zoom, which I always think about it with the button. I don't know why. Alright, so put in Zoom and then go Standard. It will give you a good window. You should be able to look very carefully and count the lines and see that the answers are 2 and -6, -1 and 2, +4 and -4. So we are going to really do these calculator. So this is going to be fun because it looks fancy. But we're going to use our calculator and it's going to be fun and easy. The first year I taught this, I tried to make everybody do it 1987 style, the way I did it. And the thing is they don't give y'all enough time to do it 1987 style. They expect you to use the calculator. They gave me less problems and more time to do it old school. They're going to give you more problems, less time, because they expect you to do the calculator. So watch that calculator video, study these examples in your book, mess around with your calculator. You can't mess it up. Don't be afraid to push buttons. Go for it. And watch the other videos I'm going to have for you about it, all right? So come back and we'll learn more about quadratic equations. Math is great.